All right, so let's talk about the difference between consoles, terminals, and shells. So, in order to understand where the terms console and terminal come from, we need to talk about the early the early stages of the computer age. So, in the beginning of the computer age, we didn't have a computer for everyone, like we have laptops for everyone now. We actually had a main computer, which we would call a mainframe, and then we would have people access that single computer remotely. So usually you would find mainframes in like a college campus or a big company or a bank or something like that. And whenever like a worker or a college student or a professor would need access to that computer to run some software or run some computations, he would access that computer remotely. So he wouldn't go there personally, but he would do it with something called a console, which is just a little piece of software. A little piece of hardware. So you can think of a console the same way you think about like a PlayStation. The only difference is that consoles back in the day would be constituted by a keyboard, a screen, and a little processor. And the software that PlayStations run is games. The software that those consoles would run, it would run several kinds of software, but the main one was a software called a terminal, which is just a little piece of software that would communicate with a mainframe computer, and you can send commands to it, and it would reply back with some information so that you could see on the screen. Okay, so the console was the hardware, the terminal was the software, and nowadays both those two terms refer to excuse me, to terminal emulators. So nowadays, obviously, we don't have consoles anymore. We just have computers for everyone, and we don't have terminals either, because we don't need a piece of software to communicate with a mainframe computer anymore. We just have our own computers. So consoles and terminals don't exist anymore, but they do. Both these terms now just refer to what are actually called terminal emulators. To make that distinction very, very clear, I have 4 terminal emulators here. This one is the built-in terminal emulator for macOS, just called Terminal. This one is iTerm2. This one is Hyper. This is built on Electron, which is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript behind. And this is, of course, VS Code's integrated terminal. Now, because both these terms, console and terminal, refer to terminal emulators, I'm just going to call them that from now on. So, what are terminals? Terminals are just the graphical user interfaces. Okay, they don't have, they don't run any kind of software per se or themselves. They do talk to some software called a shell. We'll get to that in a second. But this is just like this gray bar here with this title and that icon and the white background, and this gray bar here, title bar with this background, and this is a little bit of a neater interface, right? There's this is the title bar is the same color of the background, so this is kind of cool. And this, of course, has its own graphical user interface. So when you are choosing a terminal or a terminal emulator, you are merely choosing the graphical user interface that you are using. But these graphical user interfaces, these terminals, they talk to a piece of software that's called a shell. That's actually the program that interprets the commands that you send it, right? So let me show you the difference between different shells. So let's open another one. So this is Zata shell. This is one that's open now. And let's open another shell, or let's open another terminal, another integrated terminal that talks to another shell. And this is bash, by the way. So let's pull this side by side. Let's clear. So the first thing that you can see out of the bat is that the shell, if this is the same integrated terminal, and we have different prompts, then clearly the shell controls the prompt. That's indeed the case. That's why with these four different terminals, you have the same exact prompt, even though you can't kind of see the cross there. It's kind of a bug. I don't really care anyway because I don't use terminal. But the prompt is the same for all of them. The prompt is different here merely because I'm in a different folder, right? So that's the only difference. If I go to the home directory, you'll see the same prompt. Anyway, the shell controls the prompt, and this is zeta shell, zeta shell, zeta shell, zeta shell. Okay, in here we have bash, so the prompt is different. What else is different? The capabilities of different shells. Sorry, let me rephrase that. Different shells have different capabilities, and different shells understand different commands. For example, zeta shell understands that if I press the tilde character, zeta shell understands that I want to go to the home directory, so it just puts me there. If I use the minus character, it understands that I want to go to whatever directory I was in before. With bash, that doesn't work. I'm in send directory, which is this one, the directory of this project. If I press tilde, it says, okay, that's a directory. But if I take a look at where I am, I'm in the same place. I didn't actually navigate to the home directory. And if I press minus to go back to the previous directory, well, there's no previous directory, so I guess we need to go there first. So now we're on the home directory. If I press minus to go to the previous directory, it says, sorry, I don't know what that is. So bash does not understand this command. I could, of course, do cd minus, and that would take me to the previous directory. Of course, bash is not very useful, at least not how it's configured here, because it's not even telling me where I am. So I have to do lsla to know where I am. Anyway, the point is, consoles and terminals. So consoles used to be hardware. And terminals used to be that little software that runs on the console that communicates with a mainframe computer. Today, both those terms merely refer to terminal emulators, which are just graphical user interfaces that we have that actually talk to an underlying shell. And the shell is the actual program that's running behind the terminal, that is interpreting our commands, calling some software depending on what command you're issuing, maybe talking to the operating system and calling some operating system APIs, whatever, depends on whatever you're doing, and then sending you those results back, and then the terminal or the terminal emulator just shows you those results in a graphical format, right? In a format that you can actually see. All right, so I hope that was clear. I hope it's clear to you. Why do we use console and terminal interchangeably? It's because they refer to the same thing, terminal emulators. I hope that the difference between different shells is also clear to you. They understand different commands. Zeta shell is, by the way, my favorite shell. Is the one that is it's very simple to use, has a really nice prompt. This is not the default prompt, by the way. This was configured by me. But Zeta shell is just such a wonderful shell. And yeah, I hope this video was useful, and catch you guys in the next one.